Well, hello everybody, Benjamin Karl here. We're about to begin our unit on the works of William Shakespeare. Now, I know, some of you are a little intimidated, right? That language, it's tough. Well, we're going to take some time in today's video to share some techniques that hopefully will make your experience of William Shakespeare as easy as, well, a walk on the beach. Now, one thing to keep in mind, of course, is that Shakespeare never really expected his plays to be read. Not really. Most weren't even published in his lifetime, with the exception of a handful of quartos. No, the majority were published posthumously in folio editions. Shakespeare would have expected you to go to the theater, to hear his words said. So, to help with the meaning, I'm going to recommend that you take the opportunity to go ahead, read the lines out loud, see what they sound like. I'll bet you'll find a lot more meaning that way. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and, by opposing, end them. Make more sense that way? No, I didn't think so. Reading it out loud is important, but it's not enough. We need to know which words to emphasize. That reading was, frankly, pretty flat. So, how do we know which words to emphasize? Which ones to let go? Well, Shakespeare kind of baked that secret right into the writing of his text. The syntax of his text tells us which words are the important words. Now, this is art, so it's open to interpretation. But I'm going to show you that secret so that you can see that Shakespeare is, if you're willing to let him, directing us even now, 400 some odd years later. Let's take a look and see what we've got. First, let's look at the meter. Shakespeare wrote principally in iambic pentameter, a system where two syllables make up what's called a foot. Let's go ahead and mark the first two. 1, 2. And each line contains 5 such feet, hence pentameter. Now 5 feet is going to be 10 syllables. Let's mark them out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now wait a minute. 11. That's right. Sometimes iambic pentameter does have 11 syllables. This is what's called a feminine ending. If we were to go ahead and follow out the rest of the pattern, there we go. So we've got all the syllables marked. Now the fact that it's iambic tells us the stress pattern, that it is an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. And we can go ahead and follow that out here. I am, I am, I am, I am. So we need to go through and mark out some of the more important words. Words to consider marking out here are going to be verbs or comparisons or descriptions. It's fairly rare that Shakespeare wants us to stress the nouns, although that does sometimes happen. Let's go ahead and mark out a couple of these stressed items that seem like they might be of significance. So for instance, to be. Be is a verb, yes? Let's go ahead and mark that one there. Or not to be. Now, I don't really see any reason to mark the second version of to be because we've already marked the first one, and Shakespeare rarely wants us to mark both iterations of the same thing. So instead, we're going to move on down to the next stressed item, is. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether. Think about how that stretches things out. And we can go through and mark some of the other items here that seem important. Notice in line 58, I've marked almost nothing except for the rage part of outrageous. So, in line 60, and by opposing, end them. Stressing them seems unnecessary, because at the beginning of line 60 we've stressed by, and by opposing, do what? End them, so I want to really mark end. But that's going to require me to invert the emphasis here, which is not a terrible thing. So I'm going to move the emphasis over to end from them, because on occasion, for various reasons, Shakespeare does like to invert the stress pattern, maybe to draw additional emphasis to something. And let's see what we've got. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.